When that clock reaches 0, officer, you will not be arresting me. Someone will be arresting you. Marcus Reed said it without raising his voice, even as Officer Daniel Whitmore stood over his worn military bag in the middle of Jefferson International Airport. Around them, the morning rush had slowed into a silent circle of staring faces. Business travelers stopped beside rolling suitcases. Parents pulled their children closer. A gate announcement echoed beneath the high glass ceiling, but Marcus barely heard it. His eyes were fixed on the digital clock above Concourse C. 17 minutes remained. 17 minutes to deliver a sealed encryption device to a Pentagon liaison waiting beyond the federal security checkpoint. 17 minutes before a mission involving compromised military intelligence began to collapse. Whitmore followed Marcus's gaze and laughed. To him, the man standing before him was not a decorated Navy SEAL, not a senior chief trusted with lives and national secrets, and certainly not someone operating under direct authorization from Washington. He saw only a black man in a plain charcoal jacket carrying an old canvas bag through a restricted lane. That assumption had already shaped every question, every suspicious glance, and every command. You think a dramatic line is going to scare me? Whitmore asked, loud enough for the gathering crowd to hear. Marcus remained still. His wrists were secured behind him, but his posture had not changed. His shoulders stayed level. His breathing remained controlled. Years of training had taught him that panic wasted time, anger revealed weakness, and silence often made arrogant men expose themselves. A few feet away, 24-year-old Noah Carter struggled to breathe. The young veteran had been traveling beside Marcus when Whitmore stopped them. Now Noah stood near a row of silver airport seats, his hands trembling as the noise, uniforms, and public attention pulled him toward memories he had spent months trying to escape. Marcus noticed immediately. He always noticed. Noah, he said calmly, never looking away from Whitmore. Focus on my voice. For seconds in. Hold it. For seconds out. Whitmore shook his head with a smirk. You are in no position to give orders. But Marcus was not giving an order. He was helping a fellow serviceman remain standing while his own freedom disappeared minute by minute. That was the part Whitmore could not understand. Real authority did not need an audience. Real strength did not grow louder when challenged. Marcus glanced again at the clock. 16 minutes. Somewhere behind the secure doors, a Pentagon officer was waiting for a confirmation signal that had never arrived. Somewhere in Washington, a protected operation was beginning to register a failure. And inside the old canvas bag beneath Whitmore's hand, a biometric lock had already sent its first silent warning. Whitmore believed he had stopped a suspicious traveler. He had no idea he had interrupted a federal mission. He had no idea the airport cameras were recording every word. Most of all, he had no idea that the countdown above Concourse C was no longer measuring how much time Marcus had left. It was measuring his own. 38 minutes earlier, Marcus Reed had entered Jefferson International Airport without drawing a second glance. He wore a charcoal jacket, dark slacks, and a plain black shirt, the kind of clothes chosen by a man who understood the value of moving unnoticed. No uniform, no medals, nothing that announced the years he had spent serving in places most travelers would never see. Beside him walked Noah Carter, carrying a small backpack and watching the crowd with the careful alertness of someone still learning how to feel safe in ordinary places. The terminal was already busy. Coffee shops sent the smell of roasted beans into the open concourse. Wheels clicked across polished floors. Families hurried toward gates while business travelers checked their phones beneath the cold blue glow of departure screens. To everyone else, it was just another morning. To Marcus, every entrance, camera, uniform, and locked door registered at once. He had been trained to notice what others ignored. A security officer speaking too quietly into a radio. A man waiting too long near a restricted hallway. A camera angled 3 degrees away from where it should have been. Still, Marcus gave no sign of concern. His assignment depended on appearing ordinary. Inside the worn canvas bag at his side was a sealed encryption device connected to an investigation involving stolen military intelligence. The device had to reach a Pentagon liaison before a protected transfer window closed. If Marcus arrived on schedule, the operation would continue in silence. If he did not, people inside the network might realize they had been exposed. Noah knew only part of the mission. He knew the device contained evidence. He knew Marcus had promised to get him safely to Washington. What he did not know was how many powerful people were already searching for the same information. "You doing all right?" Marcus asked as they approached the priority screening lane. Noah nodded too quickly. "I am fine." Marcus glanced at him. "You do not have to be fine. You only have to keep moving." Noah exhaled and adjusted the strap on his backpack. Months earlier, he had been a communications specialist stationed overseas. Now he was the witness whose testimony could connect stolen access codes to a larger chain of corruption. Marcus had found him isolated, exhausted, and convinced that telling the truth would destroy his life. Instead of treating him like an asset, Marcus treated him like a man worth protecting. That was why Noah trusted him. Ahead of them, a white businessman stepped through the checkpoint after the scanner sounded. The officer waved him forward with barely a glance. Then Marcus presented his federal travel authorization. Daniel Whitmore looked at the document, then at Marcus, and something in his expression changed. His eyes narrowed. His mouth tightened. "Where did you get this?" he asked. Marcus held his gaze. "It was issued to me." Whitmore studied the seal again, but not with professional caution. With disbelief. "People do not just walk in here carrying documents like this." Marcus noticed the wording. "Not this document." "People." Noah shifted beside him, ready to speak, but Marcus gave the smallest shake of his head. The mission still had 29 minutes left, and Marcus believed patience might be enough. He did not yet know that. Whitmore had already decided what kind of man stood before him. Whitmore kept the federal authorization between two fingers, as though the paper itself offended him. Behind Marcus, the line continued to grow, but the officer made no effort to move anyone forward. A mother with 2 children checked her watch. A college student lifted his phone, pretending to read while quietly watching. Near the screening tables, a woman in a Navy airport uniform glanced toward Marcus, then quickly looked away. Her name was Rachel Kim, and she had worked at Jefferson International for 6 years. She knew the difference between proper caution and personal suspicion. What she saw in Whitmore was not caution. It was a decision already made. "Step out of the lane," Whitmore said. Marcus did not move immediately. "My authorization is valid. You can confirm it through the federal desk." "I did not ask for instructions." Whitmore tapped the document against his palm. His voice was calm enough to sound professional to anyone who was not listening closely, but the contempt beneath it was impossible to miss. Marcus had heard that tone before. It was the voice of a man using procedure as a shield for something less defensible. Noah heard it too. His jaw tightened. "He told you where to verify it," Noah said. Whitmore turned toward him. "And who are you supposed to be?" Marcus shifted his eyes to Noah, a silent reminder to stay steady. Noah swallowed his anger. "I am traveling with him." "Then you can wait over there." Whitmore pointed toward a row of metal seats near the wall. Marcus noticed the separation attempt immediately. Isolate the traveler. Remove the witness. Control the story. The sequence was familiar, not from military operations, but from the many complaints he had read during the preliminary briefing on airport security vulnerabilities. He had not expected one of those vulnerabilities to be wearing a local police badge. "We stay together," Marcus said. Whitmore gave a thin smile. "That is not your decision." He turned toward another officer near the scanner and lowered his voice, but Marcus still caught the words suspicious document and possible impersonation. The second officer hesitated. "Did you call the federal desk?" he asked. Whitmore ignored the question. Instead, he reached toward a nearby inspection table where several unclaimed baggage tags had been collected in a clear plastic tray. His hand paused there for only a second. Rachel saw it. Marcus saw Rachel see it. Neither spoke. Not yet. Whitmore picked up one of the tags and walked back toward the canvas bag. "Let us find out what you are really carrying," he said. Marcus looked at the clock above the concourse. 26 minutes remained. The liaison beyond the secure checkpoint would wait until the final transfer window, but not beyond it. If Marcus missed that window, the encryption device would lock down and send an automatic alert to Washington. That alert would protect the evidence, but it would also warn anyone monitoring the system that the operation had been interrupted. "Officer," Marcus said, "you are creating a record you will not be able to erase." Whitmore placed the stray baggage tag beside the canvas bag, then stepped back as though he had just discovered it. His expression changed instantly, surprise performed for the crowd. This tag was reported stolen. Noah stared at him. Rachel stopped breathing for a moment. Marcus remained still, but something colder entered his eyes. Whitmore had crossed from bias into fabrication, and he had done it beneath 6 cameras, in front of witnesses, with a federal clock already counting down. Marcus understood then that patience alone would not end this. Whitmore had not merely chosen the wrong man to suspect. He had chosen to manufacture the reason. For one long second, no one moved. The terminal seemed to hold its breath beneath the steady hum of lights and distant announcements. Whitmore stood beside the planted tag with the confidence of a man who believed his uniform could turn an accusation into truth. Marcus looked at the tag, then at the nearest security camera mounted above the inspection lane. Its small red light was on. Recording. Whitmore noticed the glance and mistook it for fear. "You recognize this?" he asked. "I recognize what you just did," Marcus replied. The words were quiet, but they traveled. Through the silence, Rachel Kim lowered her eyes toward the floor, her pulse quickening. She had seen Whitmore take the tag from the collection tray. She had seen him place it beside the bag. Speaking now could cost her job, but remaining silent could cost someone else far more. Whitmore turned toward the waiting passengers. "This man is being detained while we investigate possible theft and fraudulent federal credentials." A few people stepped back. Others raised their phones. Suspicion moved through the crowd faster than facts ever could. Marcus understood that pattern too. First came the public accusation, then the distance, then the assumption that the badge must be telling the truth. "Call the Federal Verification Desk," Marcus said. "Confirm the authorization before you take another step." Whitmore folded the document and slipped it into his pocket. "You do not set the procedure here. The procedure is printed on the document you just concealed." The second officer near the scanner looked toward Whitmore with growing unease. "Daniel, maybe we should verify it." Whitmore's expression hardened. "I have this under control." He called for additional airport police, describing Marcus as uncooperative even though Marcus had not raised his voice or moved from where he had been told to stand. 2 officers approached from the far end of the concourse. Their arrival changed the mood immediately. Conversation stopped. The open terminal began to feel smaller. Noah stared at the uniforms, his breathing turning shallow. Marcus shifted his attention to him. "Stay with me, Noah. Name 5 things you can see." Noah blinked. "The clock. The blue sign. The coffee shop. Your bag. The windows." "Good. For things you can hear." Whitmore stepped between them. "Enough. Face the inspection table." Marcus obeyed slowly, not because Whitmore had earned his compliance, but because Noah needed to see calm more than anger. The officers secured Marcus's hands behind him and moved the canvas bag away from his reach. There was no struggle, no raised voice, only the quiet sound of restraints closing and the sudden whispers of strangers watching a black man transformed into a suspect by one officer's story. Whitmore leaned closer. "Still think Washington is coming to save you?" Marcus looked toward the clock. 22 minutes remained. "This is not about saving me," he said. "It is about what happens when they discover why I am late." At that moment, the biometric seal inside the canvas bag detected unauthorized handling. A silent signal left the terminal, crossed a protected military network, and reached a secure operations room in Washington. On a monitor beneath the words "Transfer Interrupted," Marcus Reed's identification appeared beside a flashing red alert. The countdown had finally become visible to someone with the authority to answer it. In Washington, the alert reached Commander Evelyn Brooks before the first minute had passed. She was standing inside a secure operations room beneath rows of glowing monitors when Marcus Reed's name appeared beside the words "Transfer Interrupted." The room changed instantly. Conversation stopped. A technician enlarged the signal trace while another officer confirmed the location. Jefferson International Airport. Concourse C. Unauthorized access detected. Brooks stared at the screen, not with panic, but with the focused concern of someone who understood exactly what the warning meant. Marcus did not miss deadlines. He did not lose equipment. He did not break communication unless something had prevented him from completing the mission. "Open the airport command channel," she said. Back at the terminal, Whitmore moved the canvas bag onto the inspection table while the crowd watched. Marcus remained restrained several feet away, his posture steady despite the whispers around him. Noah stood near the metal seats, repeating the breathing pattern Marcus had given him. For seconds in, hold. For seconds out. His hands still trembled, but he had not collapsed. Marcus watched him carefully. Even in public humiliation, Even with the transfer window closing, his attention remained on the younger veteran. Whitmore noticed and smiled. "You should be worrying about yourself." Marcus answered without anger. "I know exactly what I am worried about." Whitmore reached for the bag's main zipper. "Then tell me what is inside." "Material you are not authorized to inspect." "That sounds like another threat." "It is a warning." The difference should have mattered. To Whitmore, it did not. He opened the outer compartment and removed a faded photograph. It showed 6 men in military uniforms standing together beneath a desert sky. Their faces carried the tired expressions of people who had survived something they would never fully explain. Marcus stood near the center, younger but unmistakable. Whitmore held up the photograph and gave a dismissive laugh. "Anyone can wear a uniform for a picture." Noah looked at him with disbelief. Rachel Kim lowered her phone behind the edge of the counter and quietly began recording. She had already watched Whitmore plant the baggage tag. Now she understood that silence was no longer caution. It was participation. The radio on Whitmore's shoulder suddenly crackled. A dispatcher's voice came through with unusual urgency. "Officer Whitmore, step away from the canvas bag. Federal Command is requesting immediate contact." Whitmore pressed the button. "I am conducting an active investigation. The instruction is to step away and preserve the item." Marcus looked toward the clock. 19 minutes remained. Whitmore glanced at the listening crowd, aware that everyone had heard the exchange. His pride made the decision before judgment could interfere. "Tell them they can wait." He switched off the radio. The second officer beside him stared. "Daniel, that was Federal Command." Whitmore ignored him and reached deeper into the bag. His fingers touched the cold surface of the sealed metal case. A narrow blue light appeared across its biometric lock. Then the entire screening station changed. Security monitors flashed red. Access doors along the concourse sealed automatically. A low warning tone rolled through the terminal, calm but impossible to ignore. Passengers looked around in confusion. Whitmore pulled his hand back. For the first time, uncertainty entered his face. Marcus raised his eyes and spoke with the same controlled voice he had used from the beginning. "You were warned 3 times." The red warning lights reflected across the polished floor. As airport employees moved travelers away from the sealed checkpoint, no one shouted. No one needed to. The sudden silence carried more weight than panic ever could. Whitmore stood beside the open canvas bag, staring at the metal case as if it had betrayed him. The narrow blue light across its lock had turned amber, signaling that the device had entered protected mode. Marcus remained several feet away, his hands still secured behind him, watching the scene with measured calm. The second officer stepped back from the inspection table. "Daniel, we need to stop." Whitmore looked toward the crowd and saw dozens of phones raised in his direction. His confidence did not disappear, but it began to crack around the edges. "This is standard security protocol," he said, louder than necessary. "Everyone needs to remain calm." Marcus glanced at the clock. 18 minutes remained. "Standard protocol does not seal an entire federal corridor," he said. Whitmore turned sharply. "You do not speak unless I ask you a question." Marcus did not respond. He did not need to. The sealed doors, the disabled scanners, and the emergency message flashing across every security monitor were already speaking for him. Rachel Kim kept recording from behind the counter. Her hand shook, but her focus did not. She captured the planted baggage tag, the folded authorization in Whitmore's pocket, and the untouched federal verification terminal only a few feet away. Then another voice came through the public address system, different from the usual boarding announcements. It was calm, official, and directed to one person. "Officer Daniel Whitmore, do not handle the protected item. Maintain your position and await federal investigators." The terminal froze. Whitmore looked up toward the speakers. "Who authorized that message?" he demanded. No one answered him. In Washington, Commander Brooks watched live camera feeds appear across the operations room. One angle showed Marcus restrained. Another showed Noah near the seats, struggling to remain steady. A third showed Whitmore standing over the open bag. Brooks studied the footage for only a few seconds before turning to the communications officer. "Confirm Senior Chief Reed's status." "Identity confirmed." "Mission authority confirmed." "Transfer package secure." "And the local officer?" The technician began searching internal databases. Complaints appeared first. Several claims of improper detention. Repeated accusations of selective enforcement. Missing video records. Cases closed without review. Then a restricted intelligence flag appeared beside Whitmore's personnel file. Brooks leaned closer. The flag was connected to an airport access investigation involving unauthorized movement of military shipping data. It was not proof of guilt, but it was enough to change the situation completely. Notify Defense Criminal Investigative Service, she said, and preserve every camera feed in that terminal. Back at Jefferson International, Noah looked toward Marcus. What is happening? Marcus kept his voice low. People are finally asking the right questions. Whitmore overheard him. You think you planned this? No, Marcus said. You did. The words landed without force, yet Whitmore seemed to feel them. His radio switched on again, this time through an override he could not disable. Officer Whitmore, step away from the bag and surrender your access credentials to the responding supervisor. Whitmore reached for the radio, but the second officer raised a hand. Daniel, do not make this worse. For the first time, the other officers were no longer standing beside him. They were watching him. Rachel stepped out from behind the counter, her phone held firmly in front of her. I recorded what happened, she said. Whitmore's face changed. Marcus looked at the clock once more. 17 minutes remained, exactly where the story had begun. Only now, the countdown was no longer hidden, the witnesses were no longer silent, and the man who believed he controlled the scene had become the only person in the terminal without a clear way out. 17 minutes remained when the first federal investigator entered Concourse C. Agent Thomas Hale did not arrive with raised voices or dramatic gestures. He walked through the sealed checkpoint in a dark suit, carrying a tablet and wearing the controlled expression of a man who had already reviewed more than anyone in the terminal realized. 2 airport supervisors followed him, along with a security technician who moved directly toward the camera control station. Whitmore straightened as though the arrival confirmed his authority. Agent, I detained a suspicious individual carrying fraudulent credentials and protected equipment, he said. Hill did not answer. He looked first at Marcus, then at the restraints around his wrists, then at the open canvas bag on the inspection table. Who authorized you to open that bag? Whitmore hesitated. I was acting under airport security procedure. That was not my question. The terminal fell quiet again. Hale held out his hand. The federal authorization document. Whitmore's eyes shifted toward his pocket. It was a small movement, but everyone saw it. He removed the folded paper and passed it over. Hale opened it carefully, examined the seal, and scanned the verification code with his tablet. A green confirmation appeared almost immediately. Senior Chief Marcus Reed, United States Navy. Special Mission Authority validated. Hale looked up. These credentials are authentic. A murmur moved through the crowd. Whitmore's face tightened. The system could be compromised. Hale turned toward the security technician. Show me the footage from 5 minutes before the detention. The nearest monitor changed. The recording showed Marcus and Noah entering the lane. It showed the businessman ahead of them being waved through after the scanner sounded. It showed Whitmore studying Marcus's authorization. Then it showed his hand moving toward the tray of unclaimed baggage tags. The image was clear. He selected one, carried it back, and placed it beside Marcus's bag. No explanation could change what the camera had captured. Rachel stepped forward and held out her phone. I recorded the rest, she said. He refused federal verification, ignored the radio instructions, and opened the bag after being warned. Hale accepted the device. Whitmore looked around for support, but the officers who had stood beside him were now several feet away. This is being taken out of context, he said. I was protecting this airport. From what? Marcus asked calmly. A document you refused to verify, or a man you had already decided did not belong here? Whitmore opened his mouth, but the secure doors behind Hale unlocked before he could answer. Commander Evelyn Brooks entered with 3 Defense Criminal Investigative Service agents. She wore a dark blue service uniform, and the silver insignia on her shoulders caught the terminal lights. She walked directly to Marcus, stopped in front of him, and offered a formal salute. Senior Chief Reed, on behalf of the Department of Defense, I apologize for the interruption of your mission. Every whisper stopped. Marcus returned the salute as well as the restraints allowed. Brooks turned to the nearest supervisor. Remove those immediately. The restraints were released, but Marcus did not rub his wrists or display anger. He went first to Noah. You stayed with the breathing count, he said. Noah nodded, his eyes wet but steady. I tried. You succeeded. Brooks then faced Whitmore. You believe this man was pretending to serve his country. The truth is that he has served it for nearly 20 years. Whitmore glanced at the clock, then at the agents surrounding him. 14 minutes remained. Brooks continued, her voice quieter now. But Senior Chief Reed's identity is not the only thing these cameras revealed. Your name appeared in an active defense investigation before he entered this airport. For the first time, Whitmore stopped trying to explain. The accusation he had manufactured had uncovered a truth he never expected anyone to find. 14 minutes remained when Commander Brooks placed a secure tablet on the inspection table and turned the screen toward Whitmore. His name appeared beside a list of restricted access events recorded over the previous 6 months. Each event involved military cargo information passing through Jefferson International. Each event had occurred during one of his shifts. Whitmore stared at the screen, then forced a dismissive breath. Scheduling records do not prove anything. No, Brooks said. But altered camera logs, unauthorized badge entries, and encrypted messages sent from an airport terminal create questions you will answer under federal investigation. One of the Defense Criminal Investigative Service agents opened a sealed evidence folder. Inside were access reports linking Whitmore's credentials to secure shipping routes that had later appeared in the hands of an unidentified buyer. The investigation had been moving quietly for weeks. Marcus and Noah had entered the airport carrying the final encrypted records needed to identify the entire chain. Whitmore had not known what was inside the metal case, but he had recognized Noah. That realization passed across Marcus's face before anyone said it aloud. He remembered the way Whitmore had tried to separate them, the way he had ignored the federal desk, the way he had created an accusation designed to delay the transfer and discredit both men. You were not stopping a suspicious traveler, Marcus said. You were trying to stop the witness from reaching Washington. Noah looked at Whitmore, confusion giving way to recognition. I saw you before, he said slowly. At the cargo office 3 months ago. Whitmore's expression changed. It lasted less than a second, but the agents saw it. Noah continued, his voice unsteady but clear. You were speaking with the contractor who gave me the altered access codes. I did not know your name then. Agent Hale moved closer to Noah. Are you certain? Noah looked at Marcus. Marcus did not answer for him. He simply gave the young veteran the space to choose courage for himself. Noah drew one controlled breath. Yes, I am certain. Rachel handed her phone to the security technician, who copied the recording into federal evidence. The planted baggage tag, the concealed authorization, and every ignored instruction were preserved. Whitmore looked toward the officers around him, but no one stepped forward. His badge still reflected the overhead lights, yet it no longer controlled the room. Brooks received a message through her earpiece. She listened without interrupting, then faced the lead investigator. The Pentagon has authorized immediate custody. The order covers obstruction of a defense operation, evidence fabrication, unlawful detention, and suspected involvement in the unauthorized transfer of military information. The words did not arrive with anger. That made them heavier. Whitmore lowered his voice. Commander, this is a misunderstanding. I was doing my job. Brooks held his gaze. Your job was to protect the public, not your secrets. The agents asked Whitmore to surrender his badge, radio, and airport credentials. He placed each item on the same table where he had opened Marcus's bag. The sound of the badge touching the metal surface was small, almost ordinary, but the entire terminal seemed to hear it. An agent secured Whitmore's hands and informed him of his rights. There was no spectacle and no retaliation. Only procedure, evidence, and the quiet reversal of authority. Marcus watched without satisfaction. For him, justice was not another man's humiliation. It was the moment truth became impossible to bury. Brooks checked the clock. 11 minutes remained. Can the transfer still be completed? Marcus looked at Noah, then at the sealed case. Yes, ma'am. He placed his hand against the biometric lock. The amber light turned blue, the security doors began to reopen, and the mission resumed. Behind him, Whitmore was escorted through the same concourse where he had believed one false accusation could erase another man's dignity. He had worn a badge to make the truth obey him. Now the truth was the reason the badge was gone. 11 minutes remained when Marcus and Noah passed through the reopened security doors with Commander Brooks beside them. The terminal slowly returned to motion, but the atmosphere had changed. Travelers lowered their phones. Airport employees resumed their stations. Boarding announcements filled the air again, yet no one who had witnessed the scene could pretend it had been ordinary. Marcus carried the canvas bag in one hand while Noah walked beside him, quieter now, but steadier. They reached a private federal transfer room near the end of Concourse C, where two officers verified the biometric seal and accepted the encrypted case. The confirmation signal reached Washington with 6 minutes to spare. A green light appeared above the secure terminal. Mission complete. Marcus signed the final record, then turned and found Noah standing near the window, watching aircraft move across the runway under the pale morning sky. "You made it," Marcus said. Noah shook his head. "You made it. I almost fell apart back there." Marcus moved beside him. "You stayed. You spoke. You identified the man you saw at the cargo office. That is not falling apart." Noah looked down at his hands. "I was terrified." "Courage is not the absence of fear," Marcus said. "It is deciding that the truth matters more than the fear." For the first time that morning, Noah allowed himself to believe it. In the weeks that followed, the investigation expanded far beyond Jefferson International. Federal agents recovered altered shipping records, hidden payments, and communications connecting airport personnel to a private contractor accused of selling restricted military routing information. Whitmore's role was examined in court, where camera footage showed every choice he had made. The planted tag, the concealed authorization, the ignored orders, the attempt to separate Marcus from Noah. His own actions became the evidence he had believed his badge would erase. The review also reopened 12 complaints filed against him over 5 years. Men and women who had once been dismissed as confused, angry, or unreliable were invited to speak again. This time, investigators listened. Rachel Kim testified about what she had witnessed and helped establish a new airport policy requiring automatic federal verification whenever protected credentials were presented. Agent Hale led an internal review of previous detentions. Commander Brooks recommended additional safeguards for military personnel and witnesses traveling under special authority. Marcus refused every interview request. He did not want praise for remaining calm. He wanted people to understand why he had been forced to remain calm in the first place. Months later, he returned to Jefferson International with Noah. The young veteran was no longer traveling as a frightened witness. He was beginning a new position helping other service members report misconduct without facing the system alone. Near Concourse C, they passed the inspection lane, where everything had happened. Noah looked toward the clock above the terminal. "Do you ever think about what he did to you?" he asked. Marcus paused. "I think about everyone he did it to before someone finally believed them." Noah nodded slowly. The answer stayed with him. Whitmore had believed power was the right to make another man feel small. Marcus understood something deeper. Power was protecting the truth when exposing it carried a cost. Power was helping a frightened man find his voice. Power was refusing to let humiliation become hatred. A badge had controlled the room for a few minutes. Dignity changed what happened after everyone left.